What if I told you that you've been using some of your champion's most basic abilities incorrectly? That's literally a game changer. Hello summoners and welcome back to another ProGuides video. My name is Zyra and today we'll be talking about the top 15 abilities you're probably using wrong. Basic abilities are usually overlooked because at the end of the day, that's just what they are, basic. However, it's important to not underestimate how powerful they can be, especially when used properly. Before we get started though, today's question of the day is, what abilities do you always see people use wrong in your solo queue games? Tell us about it in the comment section below. And last but not least, before we get into it, make sure you check us out at ProGuides.com for access to live, on-demand coaching from some of the top challenger players, as well as a VOD review feature that allows you to submit your gameplay and have a high-ranked player analyze it and send it back to you. We also offer courses created by some of your favorite pro players, as well as live classes that are taught by top-tier instructors like Mike Young and Saskia. Finally, let's get into the video. To start things off, we'll be looking at Camille's W. Camille's W is a wide arc that deals damage and heals you if you hit an enemy on the edge of it. However, a lot of Camille players will randomly use their W mid-fight, which not only lowers their DPS, but often leaves them sitting there for a second due to how long her W's cast time is. You can remedy this by using it before your E hits the wall, then as you fly towards the enemy, your W will connect as you fly at them, thus making your combo really fast and you're no longer wasting time casting W. Add this small combo to your pool and watch how much better it feels. Mastering this timing is one of the biggest differences between a good Camille player and a great one. Speaking of combos, next up we have Samira's E. Samira's E is a nice, short-range dash that deals quite a bit of damage and gets you ready to kill. That being said, sometimes it is better to use your E as an escape tool on minions and allies to get out of sticky situations. It's also important to know that many people use Samira's EQ combo to clear waves when it's better to QE. This combo has a wider arc on its path and heals you way more. Galio is notorious for his ability to be such a massive presence in the mid lane in not only damage, but roam potential. With his high base damage and natural tankiness, there's no surprise that he's extremely popular in the mid lane. Everyone who plays Galio or plays against him knows his basic combos that he uses to one-shot carries. These combos all rely on Galio's E as it's his gap closer and used in nearly every fight to do damage or engage. But what many players forget is that if a champion is within melee range of you, you can E backwards to get a faster knockup, since that's the direction you're going to be walking. This allows for a faster combo, which means the enemy will have less time to react. With basic kits comes small mechanics within the game that can make a massive difference. One of these is using Yone's W. Similar to Camille, you want to do damage as fast as possible, and skills with long cast times often aren't the best for that. To maximize Yone's damage, it's best to press W, then Q while the animation is going off to get as much damage output as possible during the animation. This may seem small, but it's amazing in trades and all-ins as you'll do damage while not only getting a small shield, but also a slight heal. Keep this in mind the next time you're not only playing Yone, but also when you're playing against him. Now let's talk a little bit about some supports here. Zyra is amazing at full-on bursting a carry, even without any real damage items. That being said, Zyra's W allows her to choose where she plants a seed, and it's the bread and butter of her damage. What if I told you that many players only use this for damage? This ability has pretty long range and can be used to provide vision in a similar fashion to a Jhin trap, as well as zoning off any enemies in fear that you'll transform the seed into a plant. Also, don't forget that her plants can block important skill shots. For example, if a Zoe sleeps your carry, pull out this nice little trick to help them survive the long-range combo. Another ability that people tend to use incorrectly is none other than from some of our most popular supports in the bottom lane. Yeah, that's right, Blitzcrank and Thresh. Many people use their hooks in lane to try to land something and end up missing. The best way to use their ability is to not use it at all, unless it's a free hook. That's right, believe it or not, positioning aggressively yet never throwing a hook is way more worth it than risking your cooldown. Sometimes all it takes is walking towards the enemy and they'll blow their vital cooldowns or summoner spells to avoid being hit. Afterwards, you can position to look for a kill with your new advantage by hiding in a bush or just standing aggressively. Nonetheless, they'll have to at least give up some CS. While we're talking about small mechanics, a lot of people tend to forget just how strong Nautilus's Q and E are. Nautilus Q can hook walls for a surefire escape since it ignores CC such as Blitzcrank Hook or Syndra Stun, and his E is just overall a nice slow. Sure, they're great abilities on their own, but have you ever considered using them together? When you're running away from an enemy as Nautilus, be sure to aim your hook at a wall and then press E before it connects. This will not only make you zoom towards the wall, but the enemy will now be slowed on top of it, giving you the distance advantage you need to safely escape. Also, when you usually cast your E, you root yourself for about a quarter second, and you probably get the gist by now. You want to overlap abilities that have cast times with other ones that you can cast simultaneously. When people think of enchanters, they think of basic champions like Yuumi, where all they do is press a button and bam, their carry is full health. One very important ability that I'm sure many of us have run into is Lulu's W, Polymorph. This ability can either provide attack speed to her carry or CC an enemy champion by turning them into a little plush monster. A lot of Lulus tend to use this ability to provide attack speed to their carries, because it's what enchanters are known for, especially since they build Ardent Sensor. However, in a lot of situations, especially late game, it'll always be better to just polymorph whoever threatens to kill your ADC, since they'll already have high attack speed from items and your Ardent. Another champion with a basic ability that is best used to throw your opponents off is Twisted Fate's W. This skill offers the ability to CC, wave clear, and even give mana back. With that being said, most of the time it's best to just let the card shuffle while you CS, because it'll make your enemy have to fear that you'll use the card on them. Just like our Blitzcrank trick, wasting your card early puts you in a very vulnerable position, as you're just a walking HP bar without it. Keep this in mind when you're versus someone where that sneaky yellow card can mean the difference between life and death. While we're on the topic of holding abilities, Kaisa is actually a mix of both. Many players use Kaisa's W to get in some lane poke, even though it's not on a very long cooldown and offers a small amount of damage. A better way to use it is for early game strength. If Kaisa almost has her passive fully stacked, her W does additional damage based on how close it was to popping. This can massively turn the tides of an early game duel, as it's the difference between a kill and the enemy living with 300 HP. It's also important to note that Kaisa can use her W right before she gets CC'd, and it will still go off. That means you can actually do damage while being CC'd. Crazy, right? Some things we covered already are buffering abilities over other ones, like the Nautilus Hook and E. Now this is buffering abilities through crowd control. With this in mind, Kaisa's Q is essentially a self-CC ability, so you can use her W during your Q to increase your DPS and reduce the amount of downtime. Speaking of holding abilities, a lot of Swain players tend to use their W to do extra damage to the wave or during combos. While it's fine to use it in a quick burst combo, keep in mind this ability has a massive amount of range and can be used similarly to an Ashe, as well as stopping recalls. If you see your opponent getting ready to recall, tap them with that all-seeing eye to force them to stay in lane a little longer. Just always keep in mind that you can use Swain's W to check for potential ganks, safely walk into objectives, and even just gank mid lane with the slow for a free assist. While we're on the topic of situational abilities, a lot of people use Ezreal's E to do a bit of extra damage whenever they're going to kill someone. The best way to use it is to E in a safe spot that can be used to continue to safely push out damage and keep yourself safe simultaneously. Be sure that if you're going to use your E for damage, that it's not going to leave you out to dry later. Also remember that Ezreal's E counts as a buffer similar to Tristana's W, which means that you can use it to stop certain CC abilities like Blitzcrank Hook if you use it as soon as it connects to you. This is pretty cool, as it makes Ezreal a very good pick into Blitzcrank, and overall an even safer champion once you really get used to it. ADCs are often viewed as the characters who use all of their abilities to just do additional damage. Whether it's Draven Q or Ashe W, it seems every ability on these carries is just meant to do damage. When it comes to Jhin, however, you should consider using his E as a ward, or a way to slow down ganks, rather than trying to hit your enemy with it for some small poke damage. Placing these traps in the entrance to the enemy jungle and in the river allow for you to get some extra seconds of reaction time to run away from the gank. You could also place one in the lane bush in order to slow down the enemy support's engage, as well as provide some vision. Some champions in League of Legends truly do have the most basic of basic abilities, that many people tend to use these without thinking. Morgana's W, for example, is one that most people just drop down to harass so they can get that sweet Spell Thief's gold, as well as just a small HP advantage. What they don't realize is that this ends up shoving the wave towards the enemy most of the time, which will make both you and your ADC vulnerable to ganks. it's best to use this ability on the least amount of minions possible, unless your goal is to push. And last but not least, we have NiKo. Aside from being the best decision, the mystical mage is amazing at controlling fights and has really cool abilities, such as her W, which causes her to go invisible. Many players use this ability to sneak her ultimate in a team fight or to do crazy jukes. But what if I told you that a lot of players forget? You can actually send out a copy of the champion that you're impersonating. This means you do cool little tricks, such as sitting in a bush, then sending out a clone of the ADC to bait a Zed ultimate, or even make it look like the jungler is ganking your lane. The possibilities are endless, and many players forget this mechanic even exists. It's extremely valuable to think about these small additional mechanics, as most players tend to be one-dimensional and not think about these possibilities. That goes for not just the player playing NiKo, but also your enemies will be one-dimensional as well, and they may not be thinking about these possibilities either. Use this to gain an advantage against your enemy on the Rift. And that concludes our top champion abilities that almost everyone uses incorrectly. Don't forget to join our ProGuides family over at ProGuides.com or through our Discord with the link down below. We offer exclusive giveaways and classes that you won't catch anywhere else, so stay tuned. Nonetheless, thank you guys so much for watching, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. We'll see you guys in the next video. Don't forget to stay safe, stay healthy, and have a wonderful day.